Kira K. Dixon has the latest in Memphis.
Yeah, Damon, PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan is back in action after taking some time for medical leave. He hosted a meeting here in Memphis last night for about 25 players out of a 70-man field. Ricky Fowler and Scotty Scheffler were a few of the names in attendance in that meeting, and they shared some insights from topics discussed last night.
I went to the player meeting yesterday, and I realized I hadn't seen Jay in quite a bit of time. So, yeah, it's definitely good to have him back. I think the tour's got a long way to go, but it's always nice having Jay back in person. You know, guys, when they want to, can have face-to-face time with him. He's always available, and he's doing the best that he can to make sure that he's getting as much player input as possible.
You mentioned the tour still has a long way to go. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that. Does that mean in terms of explaining the deal to players or the details of it? I was wondering if you could just expand on that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, well, you have the framework agreement, which nobody's entirely sure what that means, and then you got whatever they're working towards, and the position where I'm sitting now, it just seems like they got a long way to go in that sense, to where there's still really not much to say, and we still don't really have a great idea as to what is going on right now.
It was a small meeting. Obviously, we're here with a 70-man field. There was probably 20, 25 guys in there because it wasn't mandatory. It was more, want to hear from Jay. There's a handful of us that have been on phone calls, whether part of the board, the pack, some top players. So a few of us kind of were up to speed on everything that he was going to be kind of talking or addressing. But for the most part, just, I guess, good to see him in person. Saw him on FaceTime last week, but to see him here and then back doing what he wants to be doing. So good to see him healthy. And for me, from the meeting, nothing really new, like I said, since I've been a part of calls and hearing about some of the stuff that was in the works with Tiger and some of the player requests and things like that. So, just wanted to be there, hear from some other guys. There wasn't too much of Q&A. It was just wanting to continue to learn more about what's going on, the position we're in. And I think we all just kind of continue to learn as we go. Because, under the framework agreement, it's, not saying there's necessarily a partnership or that all this is going to go through. It's, trying to work together to ultimately see what can be done. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, or, the board or the players don't think it's the best step forward, then reassess and go from there.
Well, joining me now is Rex Hoggard, senior writer with GolfChannel.com. Rex, based on my conversation with Ricky earlier today, my impression was that this framework agreement that we keep hearing about is in no way guaranteed to reach a definitive place with the Public Investment Fund. What are your takeaways based on conversations with players after yesterday's meeting?
Yeah, I talked to Ricky last night after the meeting, Tom Hoagie, a couple of other players, and it is interesting that I think in the public the idea is that this is a foregone conclusion, that the Tour will reach this definitive agreement with the PIF, and they will come up with whatever new co or PGA Tour Enterprises is going to be. And that's clearly not the case. I mean, these conversations are ongoing. You and I both had a chance to meet with the commissioner this morning, and he pointed out that there was a series of meetings last week on Sunday and Monday, and that there'll be more meetings next week. Probably the biggest thing, and I took this from the meeting with the commissioner, that so many things going on right now with the PGA Tour, but it seems like his number one job is rebuilding the trust that was lost when they announced this framework agreement. And as it applies specifically to this, he pointed out that the only way this happens is if all 6 players on the policy board agree with whatever the definitive agreement is going to be, and that's an uphill climb right now for the commissioner.
Yeah, it was a really interesting discussion that the two of us got to attend. We got to attend our own meeting with the PGA Tour commissioner as well. It was an informal discussion, about 13 members of the media this morning. Other than what you just mentioned, what were your other main takeaways from the discussion that we got to be a part of?
Going back to June 6th, and in professional golf, that's been a date that's kind of been embedded in us going forward. That's the day the framework agreement was announced, and I asked him specifically what he would have done over. And there's a lot of things that was going through my mind when I asked the question, and the idea that he came back with is he felt rushed on June 5th. He felt like he needed to get this out into the public, and that if he had to do over again, if he could get a mulligan, that he would have made sure that he got in front of the players and informed them of everything that was going to happen long before it ever became public. Now, in his defense, this had to be negotiated in secret. We've all sort of learned about how this all came about. But he looks back now and he realizes that he left the players in a really, really bad position, and he wishes he wouldn't have done that.
Yes, and he also went into a bunch of topics. Tiger Woods joining the PGA Tour Policy Board was one of those. He said that Tiger Woods doesn't do anything lightly, so it'll be really interesting to see how that continues to evolve as well. But he, as you mentioned, said that those ongoing discussions will continue to be ongoing. They have plans to meet with representatives from the Public Investment Fund later in New York Sunday and Monday of this upcoming week. So, guys, as always, the story continues to evolve.